everybody, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I'm doing something different and here's hoping it actually works out. Today I'm going to be doing my 2017 favorites video. I know I'm really late to the party in doing this, but I wanted to do it, and now that I actually have time to actually sit down and go through 10 different books with you guys, I'd like to. First book that I really enjoyed in 2017 is Boxers by Jean Luen Yang. It's a two-part series. It's a graphic novel set in 1898 China. It's a fictionalized retelling of the start of the Boxer Rebellion. Little Bao, who's our main character, is sick of being harassed and mistreated by the foreign people that are currently in China, whether they be missionaries or soldiers. He's had enough. And so he harnesses the powers of ancient Chinese gods and he recruits soldiers to be part of this Boxer Rebellion. I really love the fantastical elements, like seeing Little Bao and his crew transform themselves into ancient Chinese gods. I also loved how Little Bao was this incredibly flawed character. He had such awesome, good intentions for himself and for his people. Like, he truly meant to do good, but he was incredibly flawed about going about it, and I love that about him. The story itself was also, it was fast-paced, it was full of detail. I guess overall just really enjoyed this story. Like I said, it's a two-part series. I enjoyed number 1 more than I enjoyed the number 2 in the series. Number 2 follows like the saint side, like the Christianity side. And I didn't think that was as strong as the first book. But I still enjoyed this series, and it's something that I would highly recommend. The second book in this list is She Changed Comics, The Untold Story of the Women Who Changed Free Expression in Comics, which was edited by Betsy Gomez. This was actually a compilation written by several other ladies. This was a non-fiction book where they did little bios of very important ladies in this industry that never really got the spotlight that they deserved. I thought this was an awesome resource, especially if you're trying to diversify your reading. Definitely check this out. Not only were there bios, but with some of these ladies, they were able to have interviews with them, because it starts off at the very beginning of the comic book industry and it goes up to like modern day comics. And towards the end, there was just additional reading by these ladies, for these ladies, if that's something you wanted to continue with, which I thought was awesome and I appreciated that. The next book on my list is actually 2 books. I'm going to be talking about the Cormoran Strike series by Robert Galbraith. If you're not aware, Robert Galbraith is actually a pseudonym for J.K. Rowling. This being her books are pretty much why I originally picked up the series. In 2017, I actually read books number 2 and number 3 in the series. I had read book number 1 in 2016. And it just took a while for me to continue on with the series. But I freaking love this series. It's an adult mystery series. It follows Cormoran Strike, who is a veteran who left the army because he lost his leg. And when he went from army life to civilian life, he decided to start his own detective business. His receptionist is Robin, who, as the series progresses, is more of a partner in the business than a receptionist, excuse me, which I appreciated. I also love how they, because of her character development, they get closer, and I really want them to get together. Like, they're not together, and it doesn't make sense to be together, especially if they're going to be in a business together. But I don't care. I've never shipped anything so hard. I want them to end up together. Because I have such an investment in these 2 characters, I think that's why I truly loved the series. The first book was very good, but there was issues in regards to the storytelling and the reveal of the bad guy, which thankfully was fixed in book 2 and book 3. The second book is The Silkworm, where Cormoran investigates the death of a local writer, and book 3, Career of Evil, him and his partner Robin, they're the targets. Mystery-wise, story-wise, book 2 is the strongest one, but in regards to character development, I think book 3 is stronger in that regard. The next book I'm going to be talking about for this list is Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. It's a graphic novel. It's a series of web comics where maybe adulthood isn't all that, what's the word I'm looking for? Isn't as all as it's cracked up to be. There's expectations of what of an adult is being like, and there's reality. I just related to this webcomic so hard because I'm trying very much to be an adult, and some days are harder than others. So I found it very relatable. The artwork itself is also very adorable. I am trying to go through these rather quickly since there are 10 of them, and we ain't get on all day. The fifth book I want to talk about is Dear Israeli, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi. Excuse me. I'm trying to do this too quickly. Dear Israeli, or A Feminist Manifesto in 15 Suggestions by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. The author received a letter from a dear childhood friend saying, hey, I just recently had a baby, how would I raise her to be a feminist? And this little book, it's like 80 pages, it's her response, it's her letter back to her friend. And for a short book, it is filled with every topic imaginable under feminism. Like, she talks about chores, sexuality, objectification, race. She talks about a lot, and for a very short book, I actually have it right here. See, it's a very short book, and for a short book is incredibly thought-provoking. She was very effective. She's a very skilled writer, and I would recommend this. The next thing I want to talk about is also a graphic novel. I did read a lot of these in 2017. It's Can't We Talk About Something More Pleasant by Roz Chast. This graphic novel is about taking care of your elderly parents and seeing to their needs as they reach their end of life. The author provided quite a bit of comic relief for such a serious subject. A lot of times she would find a distraction, or she would just, ignore what was happening because it was just too stressful, and I relate to that so hard. And even though it was funny and it was witty, she does give this sense of that complicated relationship that you have with your parents. Like, you love them, but it is hard to forget the sins that they have committed against you. And she really translates that well in this graphic novel format. The whole thing was blunt and honest and incredibly moving. It was lovely. The next thing that I want to talk about for this video that got a ton of hype on BookTube was They Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. All this hype is incredibly deserved. Star is a 16-year-old girl that goes to a very posh, well-to-do high school, and she lives in a poor neighborhood. So she has to constantly portray herself differently in these two worlds. And there's a lot of give and take. There's this balance that she has to keep, and all of that is destroyed and just shattered when she witnesses her friend die in a police shooting. And she's the only witness to boot. And of course, both these communities react very differently. And it's her trying to find herself in these two communities and really stand up for herself. She's very much stuck in the middle. Like, should she come forward and talk about what happened and the injustice of it, or does she stay in the shadows? It was such an emotional roller coaster. I rooted for Star for every step of the way. Her character development was fantastic. I think the whole story itself wrapped up on a nice note. This is an incredibly important read, and like I said, it deserves all the hype that it could get. The next book I want to talk about is, again, a graphic novel. It's Something New, Tales from a Makeshift Bride by Lucy Knisley. I didn't know how to pronounce it then, and you think that I've learned to look up these names beforehand, but I've not. It's a graphic novel memoir about planning a wedding and dealing with the chaos surrounding it. There's family drama, there's expectations, there's stereotypes, there's a lot going on. And as a bride to be myself, that's why I picked this up, and I found it really, really relatable. I loved how she's a bi person that's marrying a man, and I loved how she took a moment to discuss that side of things. Am I still bisexual because even though I'm marrying a man? Yes, the answer is yes. But it was just nice to see that she took that moment to make that point. The whole thing was motivating and endearing. The whole wedding planning process is really stressful, and so I needed to read this as a bride-to-be. I don't know if you'd experience it the same if you aren't getting married, but it's still an enjoyable read nonetheless. The art style was also very, very cheery and adorable. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness is the 9th book I want to talk about for this video. I picked this up not knowing anything about it. I saw a scary character on the cover and went, that would be perfect for Halloween. That is not the case. The book is about 13-year-old Connor, who has a monster visit him exactly at 12:07, and the monster was this like wild creature that's made out of trees. It's really cool. He tells him stories in exchange. The monster wants Connor to tell him his truth, his nightmare. A nightmare that he's been having ever since his mom started chemo. The storytelling, even though it was simple, it was engaging. I felt enveloped by the story, and the illustrations were just magnificent. And of course the content was much darker than expected, and so by the end I was in tears, and of course I was in a public space, so I got weird looks. So there's that. And the last book I want to talk about is Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. I actually listened to this as an audiobook. There's a couple of these I listened to as an audiobook and I didn't think to mention, but I definitely listened to this as an audiobook, and I think hearing Trevor Noah speak about his life is what really sold it for me. This book is a memoir, a non-fiction book of how his parents got together and living as an interracial child in apartheid South Africa. So he literally was born a crime, and his existence was a crime, or at least until apartheid was overturned, which wasn't until he was much older. I want to say he was a teenager when it finally happened. And it was just remarkable to me how he would have to hide his existence pretty much from authorities. Like, he had a claim to be a different ethnicity to get away with living as a person for so long. All of his stories were compelling. They were funny as hell. He tells an awesome story, and of course some of them were heartbreaking as hell as well. He just told all of his stories with such blunt honesty. It was, all I can say is wow for this book. He is such a remarkable, talented person. So that's all the books I have to tell you for this video. This easily could have been a top 20 video. I read a lot of good things in 2017, but I figured I'd keep it to 10 and to keep this video as short as possible. So what did you think of these books? Feel free to talk about that down in the comments below. And what do you have to recommend? What awesome things did you read in 2017? As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!